Joining us now, retired U.S. Navy Admiral James Stavridis. His new book, The Restless Wave, just hit shelves. It's a captivating read that follows a young naval officer as he faces the bloody first years of World War II. Thanks so much for being here. So your novel is historical fiction, but it also touches on something that I thought would be appropriate to talk about today, which is leadership in incredibly intense, trying situations, something you know about as an admiral. Let's listen to Governor Ron DeSantis from earlier today.
The National Guard is deploying 6,000 Florida National Guardsmen as well as 3,000 National Guardsmen from other states. We have 500 tactical vehicles, including 180 high water vehicles, aerial, water, and ground National Guard search and rescue teams. This is the largest Florida National Guard search and rescue mobilization in the entire history of the state of Florida.
9,000 National Guardsmen, 6,000 from Florida, 3,000 from other parts of the country, 500 tactical vehicles, 180 high water vehicles. What does it take? I mean, Governor DeSantis, I'm sure, has a commander who's running that. For that commander, what do you need to do? What do you need to be like in order to efficiently command that kind of response?
You know, I'm a native Floridian, Jake, and my wife is down there just north of the path of the hurricane. We're both native Floridians. I mention all that because the first thing all of those Floridians need to do, from Ron DeSantis down to his generals to the guardsmen who are Floridians, they need to kind of check their personal situation at the door. They have to be for the larger good. And number two, they need to rely on that military ethos, and this applies across both the military people and the civilians responding, which is to give it all, to leave it all on the field for those you serve. I think those are the two primary things that good leaders need in this moment. Final thought, you need to stay calm. You can't let emotion of the situation overcome what you're trying to do. That's hard to do when there's a major hurricane bearing down on your home.
I was going to ask you, what's the biggest mistake people make in situations like that? Is that it, letting their emotions rule their response?
Yeah, you know, I always say the greatest book of leadership ever written, and you know this, of course, is The Godfather by Mario Puzo.
Right.
And in it, the Don says at one point, don't make the mistake of hating your enemies. It clouds your judgment. And that's true whether your enemy is a monster storm or a terrorist organization or another state actor. Keep your wits about you.
So there's this new study out today from World Weather Attribution showing the exceptionally warm water in the Gulf of Mexico is supercharging these storms. It supercharged Helene last month. It was made up to 500 times more likely by human-caused climate change. And it's likely to impact Milton too. So you're a native Floridian, as you noted. This is going to, and you've also spent a lot of time in open water as an admiral. What is your view of climate change as a national security issue?
It's an enormous national security threat. I'll give you a couple quick reasons. The first you've already alluded to, when these superstorms come or these wildfires out west, all of this natural disasters clearly caused by global warming. When that comes, it takes the military to step in and help. The problem is you're now taking away from military readiness, national security issue number one. Number two, in places like the Middle East, when a drought ensues and agriculture is broken, populations become unsettled, migration ensues, conflict results. And then third and finally, Jake, sea level rising. Distinct from the big storms, the sea levels are rising because of global warming and the melting of the ice caps. So as those sea levels rise, our national security bases, like Norfolk, for example, are going to be slowly taken away from us. So this is a huge national security threat on every level. We ought to pay attention to it for many reasons, but national security, you bet.
How does that frustrate you when you see major political figures like Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, others suggesting that man-made climate change isn't real? It's a hoax. It's just weather. It's you know, this is nothing that the government should take action to combat.
it frustrates me, and I'll put it this way. I'm no scientist, I'm no climatologist, I'm a mariner, but I've sailed the waters of the world. I have spent a lifetime in and out of everywhere from the Arctic to the Antarctic. Here's a news flash. The ice is melting, and as it melts, because of global warming, it will create more and more of the kind of national security threats I mentioned a moment ago. It's real, and I say that as a practitioner, not a scientist. Having said all that, I think that science is pretty settled.
All right. Admiral James Stavridis, author of The Restless Wave. Thank you so much. It's always good to see you, sir.